Drink with James, episode 79. Just PSA, if you, for some reason, find yourself watching this episode and you haven't watched 78 with Wendy from Wendy's Lookbook, correct that immediately. She's amazing. We just pushed publish on it today. It was also a big moment for Tim. He's been asking us to elevate the production quality of Drink with James for a while. We rented some lights. I think they really look good. Did you like the look? I don't think we really, if you were like, no, I didn't like it, I don't think we care. I think we're probably just going to use lights anyway. But I'm interested to know if you thought it looked as good as I thought it looked. I feel like I'm I'm not going to say, I don't even know if there's any newscasters I can mention who aren't total scumbags anymore. So I was going to say Charlie Rose, but he's a scumbag. Anyway, it felt very fancy and serious, and I loved it because I am a fancy and serious person. So, moving on, we've got the Fork Hide holiday party tonight. So Tim and I are having a whiskey, but just a small one because it's going to be a long night of French wine. We take over this little restaurant on the Lower East Side, this will be the last year that we're able to do it because we took every seat in the place this year. So tomorrow morning will be kind of rough, but I will assuage those feelings and I will get over it by climbing onto a private jet and going down to Miami with NetJets. So, if you follow me on Instagram, congratulations, you've already seen the entire thing. I am sorry that I am not sorry. This is the lifestyle I should have, and while I don't, I am happy to rub it in your face the few weeks a year that I do get to fly on a private plane and stay at the Four Seasons. So, cheers to that. Moving on. 2 episodes left this year. Tim and I have been sitting around talking about a lot of really exciting stuff. One thing that I think y'all are, if you're regular watchers of the show, are really, really gonna like, that I'm not gonna tell you about yet. But any other suggestions, things you want us to focus on more? I know the episodes where we interview other influencers do really well. Do you want more of those? Do you want us to dive in deeper into certain topics? What would be good? We can keep doing this. Y'all keep sending questions, which is great. And if you haven't sent your question, please do. And we can keep just doing this. But this is y'all's show as much as is mine. And interested to know what you want to hear more of in 2018. Let me know. Now we'll move on. Questions. Okay. Thoughts on seasonally themed Instagram photos. This meaning, the like quintessential fall photos or the holiday photos or spring with the bouquet or summer with whatever summer photo is. Do we think that is continuing to be interesting as more and more influencers do these things, or are people getting tired of it? Actually, this is a really interesting question. Ideally, people follow you because they like your point of view, right? And I always, I love photography and follow a lot of photographers. And I love when you see a photographer take something like fall, right? And be like, I'm gonna create a quintessential fall image. And they do that in their style and they kind of interpret it in their way. I think that's really interesting. I think as an influencer, if you are thinking about those things, the holidays, changing of seasons, New Year's, all this stuff. When you think of that stuff, I think it's a really good time to show your creativity, actually, to step back and say, okay, New Year's is in a couple weeks. What is a post I could do that would just knock everyone's socks off, that just totally encompasses the new year and does it in a way that's different than other people? I think it's this way to show brands as well your creativity, because you're essentially doing what you would be doing with a brand, which is executing on a brief, right? You say holiday photo or New Year's Eve photo or Valentine's photo or fall photo or whatever it is, and you're saying, I'm taking this concept and this is how I am playing it out. So I think, if you learn anything from Jamie Beck's episode, which again, if you haven't watched it, you definitely should, but going deep in those personal projects, I think are really valuable because it shows brands the care and the creativity that you will take and the passion that you will bring to potentially a collaboration with that brand. And it's just fun. I think it's fun to step back and say, okay, you're a content creator. Like, you should be stepping back and saying, New Year's is in 2 weeks. What can we do that's different? So I know a lot of you have watched the Michelle Take Aim episode, and again, I'm going to say it again. If you haven't, you should definitely go watch it. And I see new influencers every week starting the Take Aim challenge, as it's been hashtagged. And there is definitely something to be said for creating on the fly, authentic content with your iPhone that is very just you focused. I do think that these holidays give you an opportunity to try and do something really creative, push the envelope again, just have some fun as well. Like, there's things that you can do for you and things that you can do for your audience or your engagement or the algorithm or whatever it might be. But like, you should also say, fuck it, I want to do this crazy idea I have for holidays, which may not get any likes, but is gonna look awesome. And I think there are posts that you can put onto your feed that are for brands that show the level of professionalism and creativity, et cetera, that you can bring to a collaboration. And then there's posts that you do that, optimize for engagement and, authenticity and all those things. And those you don't have to just go in on one or the other. I do think you can balance those out. So holidays give you a good time to do that. If you're not working on brand work yet because you're still growing, it's a good chance to show what you could bring to the table when you're doing something that everybody else is doing. I always as a photographer as well thought about that stuff as a challenge. Like, I'm a competitive person, and I was like, I'm gonna take the best fucking fall photo on the internet this season. Like, I am gonna do it. I'm gonna do it early, so I get the shot and I get that share of voice early, and I'm gonna do it better than everybody else. I still think about that when it snows the first time in New York. I run around with my camera because people will get sick of snow photos after a while, but they're so hungry for them right when it snows that the engagement's really high. So doing that in a way that is different and that shows your creativity, I think is valuable. How can I grow my following in other markets? This is a question of someone who's moving to New York from another country and wondering how they grow their following. One, let's just talk about America and potentially New York and LA in general. I heard this great story on This American Life about this French comedian who was they said was the Jerry Seinfeld of France, the most famous comedian in France. And he moved to New York, and he's playing small shows in New York, doing comedy in English. He was like, New York City is the center of the comedy world, and yes, I'm the most famous comedian in France, but that doesn't mean shit. The only thing that matters is being a successful comedian in America, and specifically in New York. I thought that was really interesting, and I think the same can be said of the influencer space. There are all of these markets that are all very valuable, and you can grow, and you can be one of the biggest influencers in these other countries, but for the next few years, who knows how much longer, America will continue to be as important as it is, but right now it is the most important consumer market in the world. China has more potential customers and people, obviously, and they will take us over in importance. But right now, America is still the place where you kind of want to have a following, you want to make your mark. And so, I think it makes sense as a foreign influencer at some point to try and grow your audience in the US. I will speak again about this comedian because I think it's an interesting comp to what you could be feeling if you're an influencer coming to America. You might want to look at what American influencers are doing and try and do that and try and grow in the ways that work as normal American or New York or LA bloggers do. What was interesting about this comedian, he had a bunch of other comedians critique his work. And he was doing comedy in a way, speaking as if he was just a normal New Yorker. He was talking about Starbucks, he was making jokes about cabs, he was kind of telling the same kinds of jokes that anybody would. And there was this critique, I can't remember who it was from, that was essentially like, why would you not talk about your experience of being, super famous in one country and totally unknown in another? Not speaking English really well and trying to learn that. Being a foreigner and, a stranger in a strange land, essentially. Like, you the things that make you different are certainly a challenge, but they're also a huge benefit. And so I think coming from a different market to America and growing, I don't think you should necessarily just look at what's working for American influencers. You should just authentically talk about that experience. You're moving to a new country. There is such a small percentage of the world that will ever do that will ever move from their home country to another country. A lot of people move from state to state, but not another country with another language, another culture, another, other norms that they don't understand, things like that. So I think that stuff is really interesting. I think you should talk about that. And in the interest of making this question useful for everybody, I think about those things that you might think of shortcomings. Oh, I don't live in New York. Oh, I don't look like every other influencer is popular. I don't have the same kind of style. All of these things that make you different are the things that you should be talking about and focusing on. Those are the interesting things, and I think that's the story that you should generally be telling. Not looking at what's working for Blair Edie or for Jay-Z or for Olivia Lopez and saying, oh, I'll just do that then. Because anyone who's been successful is probably built that success off the back of their eccentricities and their differences and the things that make them unique. So do the same for you. Moving on, last question. How can I find representation / should you find representation? So there is this strange, I don't know how to say it other than fetish, like in the influencer space, I feel like people fetishize representation a bit much. It is like this goal that everybody is driving at, like if I could just get represented, then things will change for me. And in part because obviously 4Card is a different business and we don't represent influencers, and we never will. I don't think it's as important as people think it is. Representation is essentially another way of hiring an employee, right? You're saying there is something that I'm not good at, and I'm going to hire somebody to fill the gaps in the things that I'm not good at, or that I don't have time to do anymore, or that are no longer worth my time because I'm focusing on something else. So you can do that. Let's say it's somebody to answer emails, negotiate for you, look over contracts. Okay. I mean, you could get an agent. You could also hire somebody, on a salary to do that. Getting representation is not success. Saying that you're repped by DBA or by Next Models or by, Socialite does not mean that you're successful. It means that you're giving somebody 15 to 20% of the money that you make to answer your fucking emails. And they do a lot more than that, but you have to make sure that they are providing that value. You have to make sure that you're at a point where you think you're losing deals, you're losing at least 20% of the money that you could be making because you're not doing what they could do effectively. Or you need to be at a place to say, you know what, it's worth the 20% for me to not do this shit anymore because I just don't want it in my life. I don't like emails. I don't like the business side of things. I don't want to do it. Here at 4Card, we do so much of this education stuff because we are of the teach a man to fish mindset rather than giving them a fish, and if you can learn to negotiate and you can learn to do those things, then I think that, you will, in the long run, be quite a bit more successful. But I also think that you shouldn't be spending too much time trying to fix the things that are wrong with you. Like, if you're bad at business and you're just terrible and you've always been bad at it, like, I'm not sure that focusing a huge amount of time on that is going to make things better. So, you might need the help. And I guess this is a long way of me saying, understand that getting an agent doesn't mean you're going to be successful. And make sure that when you start to give away 20% of the money that you make, that person is going to bring at least 20% value back to you, or you're not really doing. It's not really a very good deal. So, if that's the case and you want to find representation, honestly, I think that if you're at a place where you need representation will find you. when FourCard was trying to raise money and the business wasn't going that well, and nobody cared about influencer marketing, and nobody certainly cared about me, I spent a lot of time going out trying to raise money, and it never worked. And then the business started doing better, and we started to get some buzz, and influencer marketing became more important, and people thought that the way that FourCard thought about influencer marketing was important. And now all those VC firms that I emailed for meetings, who never answered my emails or who passed on the investment, are reaching back out to us asking to give us money. I'm getting emails every week from people who want to give us money. And that's not to brag, that's just to say that, unfortunately, if you're saying, I am going to go out and find representation, it's probably not going to work for you. Once people email you and say, hey, I'm an agent, I love what you're doing, would you be interested in having this conversation? Then you could probably go out and email DBA and email Socialite and email people, because if people start reaching out to you, it means you're probably at the level where those meetings would be easier to get. If you're at 15,000 followers and you think that you want an agent, I just think you're barking up the wrong tree, and it's a huge waste of your time, unless you're literally incompetent and you don't even understand how email works, at which case I would question some things in your life in general. So yeah, that's generally where you are. Wait for them to reach out to you, and then you can kind of email people and try and set up meetings, and it's like any other business transaction, right? They should be pitching you. They want to take 20% of your money. They should have a pretty good fucking reason why you should say yes to that. And if they don't, walk away. So, that was episode 79. I've got a private jet to catch in the morning. I've got a toast to give tonight, and I have a lot of packing to do, so I'm going to leave. Goodbye.